Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jackie Alamany, anchor of the Power Up newsletter at the Washington Post, and I'm delighted to welcome my guest today. That's Amy Lee, the lead singer of Evanescence, and Zach Carruthers, bassist and co-founder of Portugal, the man. My high school self would be totally freaking out right now that I'm interviewing you both on Zoom. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm stoked to interview you both, and I hope everyone in your world is safe and healthy. Let's just jump right into things. Zach, can you tell us about the work that you're doing with Headcount, why you became involved with the group?
Hey there. Yeah, thanks for having me. And this is awesome. Head count, it just seemed like one of those no-brain situations. We support as artists. I'm sure Amy, you can agree that we respect people's voices and everybody needing to find their voice, figuring out what they want to say and say something. And we first started working with Headcount, I believe, in 2014. And since then, we've been registering people to vote at all of our shows here in the U.S. And we've been doing programs before that. And it's a tricky situation, and it's nonpartisan, and it doesn't matter who you vote for. You just want to be prepared. We grew up in Alaska. We just know about being prepared, and there's been many times when I've tried to do something and things things came out that happened that I wasn't prepared for, and so register, and be prepared. Listen to yourself and use your voice.
Yeah, Zach, you make a really important point that voting is nonpartisan. That's something I don't think we can emphasize enough, and we'll return back to that. But Amy, you turned your new song, Use My Voice, everyone buy it on iTunes, into a PSA encouraging young people to vote. People in general. You haven't been very vocal about politics previously. What inspired you to write this song and get so involved with the cause?
Well, these times that we're living in, this is something that can't be ignored. I think that this doesn't have to be, and it isn't, as we're seeing, people turn out now in droves for early voting. It is so beautiful and encouraging to see that people are seeing this time as urgent in our world and in our country. It really is important that we all weigh in so that we can all be represented. We can't be represented, as a country properly if we don't all use our voice and support each other in that. And it can be complicated, especially this year. Everything's different, and it seems that well, it is. It's under a sort of attack. The idea, the credibility of it, which it shouldn't be. We have to get in there and use our voices so that we can have representation not just for ourselves, but for everybody in the country.
Yeah, and Zach, as I'm sure you're well aware, youth voting has historically been low in the country, although it has spiked in recent years, especially the 2018 midterms. And there's a number of groups, including yours, that are going to turn out a record amount of young voters this November in 18 days. But on that note, I want to go to a question from the audience, which is if you are the next generation and you are registered to vote. This is from Janice Patterson from Ohio. Why do you think people might be registered but then not go to vote?
There's a million reasons, and it's all personal. I honestly, I never voted before. I never cared. I grew up. I didn't think that I could do anything about it, or it wasn't that I could do anything about it, but I wanted to do it personally and in a different way. Coming from Alaska, we don't necessarily trust government or politicians very much, but what I've found is that that doesn't matter. You got to trust yourself. And in this age of disinformation and just having an influx, having so much information at our fingertips, we have no idea what is actually true. And I think you got to listen to your gut feeling. There's a truth inside everybody, and I do still have faith in people and like a person in particular. And then you got to have faith in other people and use your voice to represent the other people, and that you may not know. You got to vote for somebody you don't know. And like the governor was talking about earlier, for generations down the line, we're doing this work now for people that we'll never meet. That'll because things go slowly in this world, but you got to make a plan. You got to prepare, and why not, man?
That's so
Are,
true.
are you worried? Yeah, are you worried, referencing back to a question my colleague Karen asked, Governor Patrick, are you worried that the pandemic is going to prevent people, especially young people, from turning out, especially with that lack of ground game that might be taking place on college campuses that we usually see?
I hope not. There's so many options now. And voting isn't all about the day of the election. I think that early voting is a really good choice right now. Head count, part of the reason I think it's so brilliant and why we wanted to partner with them is because they make the information really easy and accessible. You can go right onto their website, find out not only if you're registered, but exactly where to go, how long, your time frame is for early voting, all your options of where you can go. Having that information be easily accessible, I think, is really important. It is there if you go to headcount.org. And you can quickly find everything all in one place instead of having to dig around. There is so much information out there, and it can be really confusing.
Yeah, and I actually thank you both for your service because I think really it is so important to make sure that people have access to that verified information, because as you both noted, it can be really confusing, especially right now with the pandemic and all these new rules and mail-in ballots and are you going to vote in person or early and whatnot. But Amy, you're a mother, and so I'm wondering when you think about the next generation, what are the priorities and policies that animate you and that you think are really important for your children and their well-being going ahead?
Yeah, I have a 6-year-old, and I was listening to Duvall also and thinking that was so right on what he was saying. What we do now really matters for the future. Caring for our planet is a big one for me. We have to look at the signs. We have to pay attention to science. We have to save our world. That needs to be a priority. It's so clear right now. Also, I just hope that I want my son to be able to look up to our leaders for being honest and caring for others. I think that's really, really important. And I think that we really can make this a better place, but we need to unify. Can't be about dividing. It needs to be about coming together as a nation.
Zach, what do you think is the most important issue that you're voting on this election? Is it climate change, tax policy?
Yeah, I'm with Amy on that. The environment, this world, and just how we've built and we make businesses and using just natural resources that will eventually run out. And uplifting indigenous rights is a big thing for us. We run a foundation and that's focused on elevating indigenous voices, and that's turning out the native vote is a huge thing for us. And yeah, and honestly, the youth, we got to take care of our youth and our elders, and I think it's everybody's responsibility in the middle, like we are, to take care of both of those people, and that kind of keeps the cycle going. And that's one thing that I am very optimistic about is the power that the youth have right now. I have seen some unbelievable things in the last few years of youth organizing, getting out there on the streets, being powerful, being together. There's a lot of separation still, but I do really believe that we're going to have record numbers this year, and the youth are motivated. They got a fire in them for sure, and it's amazing to see. I haven't been proud to be human in a while, and when I see the kids getting together and doing all the powerful things that they're doing, it really restores my faith in that.
Right on.
Now, I have a little bit of a personal question for both of you. This question sort of hit me when I saw the news this week that Shaquille O'Neal came out and admitted that he was going to be voting and was registered to vote for the first time this year in his lifetime. Um, and it really highlighted this idea that there's a little bit of a stigma around talking about civic engagement and, you know, when your first time voting was. So I'm wondering, when both of you voted for the first time and what advice you might have to people who haven't voted before and are scared of the process and, maybe embarrassed to even talk about it or ask for help about to figure out even how to do it.
There's nothing to be embarrassed about. And I think part of that a little bit is kind of just growing up and being in a place where you really realize that it matters. And I haven't voted every time. I have been on tour and also thought I know which way my state's going to go. And man, we I hope we've learned that it really does matter. It can really come down to the wire. It really does matter. That's something I just became more convicted about. I first voted in college I was excited and proud to do it. The person I voted for didn't win, but it didn't matter. I felt sort of like it was a little bit of a rite of passage, becoming an adult and having the ability to be a part of it. But we're in a time now where that fire has been lit. I think with so many people, um, young people, myself included, in this country, and I think it's a great thing. I think it's something that we can't discourage or make people feel bad for not having voted before. It's not about that. It is about the future, not the past. Let's all get involved now. Just like Zach said, it's been really amazing to see people, all different kinds of people, coming out together in the streets, standing up for what they believe in. Um, that's beautiful. That's rock and roll.
Yeah. Hell yeah. No, same. Honestly, I've never voted for a president before until I will I will any day now, as soon as my ballot shows up.
Nice.
I voted for small things.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. And there is a stigma against it, and there is an insecurity about it. And I've had a problem, just personally speaking, on many levels with decision making and thinking about the consequences. And like I said earlier, I don't have a lot of faith in politicians, especially at that level. I voted for things on the community level before. I was very active in the community as a kid, and actually I always have been in certain ways. But I've always been a little bit of an anarchist. Never believed in big government. I think that's just kind of where I grew up. But
Right.
that has changed, and I have tried before, and that's a lot of the problem too. Same, I've been on tour and tried to vote, and my absentee ballot got messed up, and so I have tried, and it hasn't worked out. And so, but there is a thing you gotta, in this time, I think it's really good to ask questions. It's really good to be okay with asking yourself uncomfortable questions as well. And, you know, that's where growth comes from. And you got to be honest, and you got to, speak your truth, man. And yeah, I've never voted. I'm going to do it the first time. I have always been registered, and I've always fought to get people registered. And I did that before I was even in this band, and I might have certain ideals that kept me from voting for any specific election, and I feel bad about it. And I did the wrong thing. Don't do what Donny don't does.
And on this topic, what do you have to say to the critics like the Laura Ingrams of the world who eviscerated LeBron James for getting involved in politics and expressing his political views, that there should be sort of like a separation of churches, that entertainers should stay in their lane, and not get involved in politics or even nonpartisan causes like voting?
That sounds like a way to suppress a voice to me.
Word.
That sounds like a way to tell people to be quiet with shaming. That's not what we need to be doing right now. We need to be standing up and being strong. And just like Zach said, believe in yourself, listen to that voice inside yourself. Don't let anybody else put you down. Don't let anybody else stop you from what you believe. And seek the truth. I think it is hard to find the truth sometimes these days. It doesn't come down all the mainstream channels. You really need to dig when you hear something that sounds like something you do or don't want to believe. Before you start regurgitating it, go check out where it came from and see if that's right. Find the truth, make up your own mind, and use your voice.
Yeah. I mean, we're artists. It's not just like entertainers. And I mean, the whole reason that we do this is because we do whatever we want to do, and everyone should. And that doesn't mean you have to be an artist to do that. That works in everything. And touring, it's like we travel way more than most politicians. We see everything. We live all walks of life when it comes to tour, and the places that a lot of venues are when you're in a small band, and like seeing the growth, and every day is different. Sometimes I'll eat dinner at like a Michelin rated restaurant and stay at a 5-star hotel, and the next night I have a bag of chips and sleep on a park bench. You never know. But in that we meet a vast amount of people, and we hear a lot of stories. And that's what we do, is we share stories, we listen to that, we take that in, and then we think about it, and we create things to share our stories and pass it along. And so we see a lot of walks of life, and I've heard a lot of stories, and somewhere in that you find what you believe to be true.
This is definitely the most poetic Zoom I've ever done. We don't have much time left, but I'm going to squeeze in two more questions for you guys. And I'd be remiss not to ask you more about your roles as artists. And it's impossible to ignore how artists have been affected by this pandemic. Broadway put on hold until next year, production paused, concerts canceled. And it's such a vibrant and important part of American culture that you guys contribute to. What can be done to help alleviate and keep artists and performers afloat until there is a vaccine?
Hmm, that's a tough question.
Yes,
Um,
anything to see from the federal government?
yes, we were able to help our touring crew a little bit, and we were able to help some of the people who work for us. Yes, in the beginning, and that is helpful. But um, w- as as a community in the music industry, we're just trying everything we can to find new ways to get music out there, to make any money, to continue to survive, just like everybody else. Um, and I think that that is important just to show that it is possible to continue life during this time and to continue to do our jobs, but that we need to, in some form, let old ways die and be willing to try new things, to think outside the box, to invent new ways to connect with people and to share music through technology or whatever else. So I don't know, the best way you can support, like stay out there, pay attention to what's going on. I mean, I think that people are, they have a little bit more time on their hands. But I hope that we can try to mostly set an example that it's possible to keep going, to spread that hope, because it is, we're going to get through this. All of us in all of our jobs. We have to think outside the box and keep pushing it to a new place.
Yeah, change, forced change really, it sparks creativity,
Yeah.
and necessity really does that. You know, desperate times call for
Can you
desperate
guys call me back?
measures. Uh, Um, and so the Save Our Stages campaign is a big one. The independent venues are having a lot of trouble right now, and I think just keep listening, man. We're gonna figure all this out. I know that people miss being together. I miss touring. On the other hand, I'm always kind of a guy who looks on the bright side of things, and I get to spend time with my family. I've spent more time at home than I have in years, which
Yeah.
is uh, which is pretty nice. And it's given us a lot of time to reflect and fix a lot of things that are broken in within us, within our systems. You know, everybody has that cabinet that squeaks or doesn't quite close right that you've been annoyed with for 3 or 4 years. This might give us a
Okay,
chance to fix things in our government, in our institutions, and in ourselves. And so take advantage of that. But yeah, definitely Save Our Stages. We I know we miss coming together. I miss volume. I miss decibels. Like, I got a pretty good system in my truck, but I miss bass just hitting me in the chest.
I
And
busted
we
my
all,
speakers just last week. Blew them right
yeah,
out.
yeah, totally. Yeah. So keep it loud,
yeah.
man, and do what we can until we get back. But we want to make sure everybody's safe, everybody's healthy, and on that, vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to squeeze in my last question. I'm sorry if I lost you guys there temporarily, but what is the urgency of now? Like, why now? What is the biggest issue? Why do people need to go out there? Like, what's your closing message to anyone watching this and to young people and voters in general around the country?
We need to be represented. Um, we do. Our country is a free country because we elect our leaders, because our voices are the ones that make the future. So we have to participate for it to continue to be that. It's that simple.
Mhm. Now, there's no better time than now. All we have is the present, and we're doing it for the future, but that doesn't exist yet. We're creating that every day. The past is the past, and we got to learn from it, and we've got to do things to heal um, things that have been done in the past. But now is always the time to do anything. It putting things off, which I've been guilty of forever. Turns out that's one thing I've learned. It doesn't work so well. So do something now.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, guys. Thank you so much for your insight and your time. I'm looking forward to seeing you both on the stage, hopefully sometime soon. We've got Amy Lee of Evanescence. Thank you. And Zach Carruthers of Portugal the Man. Thank you so much again. This was a fascinating discussion. If you missed it or just caught the tail end and want to watch some highlights, please go to WashingtonPostLive.com. I'm Jackie Alamany. We've got a full calendar of events coming up in the next, the final stretch till the election. So please tune in. Thanks again, everyone.